What's going on, YouTube? We are back with another video, and in today's video I just wanted to show you a little bit different video style, more of a day in the life of a professional poker player. Just want to tell you that I'm not playing poker 24 hours in a day, so I want to tell you like what my day looks like before I do go for a game. So I'm here at the gym trying to get my body right, which helps get your mind right. It releases stress, gives you some endorphins, makes you feel good about yourself, get that dopamine rush. And also, it's just a very good thing to be healthy. We all know as poker players, we might go to the casino, sit in one seat for 8 hours, 10 hours, only going to the bathroom, barely eating, barely drinking water, which is very not healthy. So I'm going to show you what I do, how I prepare, and what I do, and how my day looks like as I go. So I'm going to go inside. I'm going to show you a couple of my lifts, and then I'll show you what else I do before I go and how I prepare. So here's a half little walkthrough of the gym. This is the machine area, but today we are going to be walking to the freeway section of the gym. Obviously every day is different, but this is what we're going to do for chest. So let me just show you some of the exercises that I do. So after doing a 15-minute warm-up, we work up to our top set. We're using 100-pound dumbbells on an incline chest press. And so we always are choosing to do between 8 to 12 reps on any set that we do for anything. I'm not trying to be a powerlifter per se, but still I do like to lift heavy weights. My form is not exactly great, but this is just the heaviest set that I go to. As I do a downward pyramid, the form gets a lot better, as you'll see. So here we are using a lot less weight, only 70-pound dumbbells, but on these sets, I like to get a deeper stretch. It's way better form than the other one, so I do a little bit of both just to kind of hit all of the marks. So we're doing a couple sets like this, getting a deep stretch, and let's blow it up. And after this, we're going to hit abs, and I'll show you in a second what I do for that. As for abs, I don't do nothing too special, just doing some weighted sit-ups. I also do hanging leg raises. Didn't have footage of that, but that's pretty much the workout in summary. Obviously I do more sets than what you see. I do about 6 sets for chest and about 6 sets for abs. So now I'm gonna show you what I do after my workout to prepare. So after I work out, my post-workout meal is Chipotle, white rice, get some chicken, get my protein in, and then after that, go home and shower. And then after that, I am on my way to the casino, and then I'll show you what I do as I'm on my way to the casino to help get my mind right.
So you flop a straight
Way to the casino, like listen to
you have the thing
just to kind of get the turning 2 straight half of hour to how that approach the game. Obviously, all spots are going to be different.
So
this is
that's big flop heads up,
kind of lock in.
and I mean,
So when I get to the casino, I feel focused and ready to go. One thing that just never gets old is walking into the MGM casino and seeing all the bright lights and open area. Even though the poker room entrance is close to the main, I still like to walk around and just admire how beautiful it is. As you see here, you see all of these nice decorations, and we are in the restaurant area along with the theater and hotel room area. So it's such a beautiful thing. But as we make our stroll, we're on our way back up to the poker room. And as we're walking up this long escalator, it gives me time to catch the butterflies and get nervous about the game, but also the excitement rushes, and I'm just ready to play. When you get to the top of the escalator now, you walk around the corner and then it opens right up to a bright poker room, very spacious, over 50 tables. And I'm just thinking it's time to win some money. You walk up, you get your table, and now let's go. It's time to win. So in this first hand of 2-5, we have King 9 of diamonds and low jack, and we raised to $20 over 2 limps. We could raise it a little bit more because of the dead money. However, I don't think that $20 is that bad of a sizing. So anyways, when it gets to the small blind, he decides to raise it up to $75, and he's a watcher of the channel. So I've started to realize that people who watch the videos, a lot of times want to get into action versus me. They want to 3-bet me or even try to stack me. So with that being said, being in position, I decide to call in position. So we're off to a flop, which is Queen 8-7 with 2 diamonds. So we now have an overcard, a flush draw, along with backdoor straight draw. So when he checks, I decide on if I should put out a bet with such a decent draw. However, he still is the 3-better. He could have all of these strong hands. He could have aces, kings, pie of queens for a set, and just might be wanting to trap me. So I just decide to check, and we are off to a turn, which is the 10 of diamonds. So we instantly get there, along with having a gut shot to a straight flush. So when he checks again, I don't think that he has very much. So I put out a small bet of $45. That's a very small bet. It's 45 into a pot of about 170. So it's about 25% bet. That could induce him to just raise just off of my bet sizing. And also it'll let him call with weaker hands such as 8-9 suited, pocket jacks perhaps, that doesn't believe me. So with that being said, he decides to call, and we are off to a river, which is a board pairing 8, so we no longer have the second nuts. But once again, when he checks, we're just going to put out a bet, and we bet decent size. We bet out for $125. Obviously, this would not be the best spot in the world if he raised, but we'll deal with that if it happens. But he just decides to tank fold, and I show him that he made a good decision. I know a lot of commenters don't like how I show my hands, but a lot of people are just watchers, so they all ask me, oh, what did you have there? And I don't mind showing because they're going to see it later on. So here he is, king 9 of diamonds. We had it, but we're moving on to the next hand. So once again, we find ourselves with a pretty decent hand. This one's a little better, though. Ace queen, under the gun +1, and we raised to $25 over a straddle. Now, I know a lot of people raise to $40 over a $10 straddle. However, I don't mind making it $25, and you could say that you're going to get a lot more calls, but if that's the case, then I'll just deal with that when necessary. And also, a lot of players aren't going to be 3-betting light, so if a player in the next few positions 3-bet me, then I know that they have a better hand. I might just be able to get away from ace-queen offsuit. But if I know that I have a player that's in the blinds or on the button, that's a really squeeze-happy player, then if he 3-bets, I might put in a light 4-bet knowing he's just squeezing here. But either way, none of this comes true because the only thing that happens is the big blind and straddle call, and we are off 3 ways to a flop of a jack 5-3 rainbow board. And I'm in position at this point, but when it checks to me, I just decided to check back. A lot of people like Broadway holding, so I just decided to check back. I don't have a good feeling about this. And we're off to the turn, which is the jack of spades. So now when the big blind bets out for $30, it folds to me. And I do think that ace high could be good here a decent amount of the time. So I'm going to call and see what he wants to do on the river. And now the river is an 8, and he bets out for $75. Now at this point, when he bets $75, he's only telling me 2 things. And that's he has a jack / full house, or he has nothing in his bluffing. Because if he had like a marginal showdown hand, like say ace-5, he would just check and maybe decide on if he wants to bet. He's not going to be value betting a 5 or any worse hand than trips or a full house here. So I'm thinking for a while, and I just think that I haven't quite seen this guy get out of line yet. And if you haven't seen a guy get out of line, sometimes you got to just play it face up and knowing that people are value betting way less than they should on the river. So at this point, I just decided to fold, and he actually does show me he had queen jack for trips. And at this point, I'm just wondering, why was there not trip queens on the board? That would have been a lot more fun. But either way, I'm glad that we folded and didn't try to hero call with ace high. Even though sometimes it can work, I just felt like that bet sizing wasn't a bluff, and it wasn't. So we're moving on to the next hand. So this hand is not exactly GTO, but we have 10-8 of diamonds, and I limped the straddle. So I called it $10, and so many people call. 6 out of 8 people call. So we're going 6 ways to a flop of a jack 9-6 board with 2 clubs and 1 spade. So we are open-ended, but not to the nuts, obviously. If we hit a queen, we will not have the nuts. King 10 would be the nuts. However, when it checks all the way around, I'm feeling pretty happy, and we hit the bink 7 of hearts. So the flush draw didn't hit, and we actually now have the stone cold nuts. And now the small blind player leads for $15. There's a fold in between, and the straddle decides to call. And being is that this board is getting super wet. I mean, there's already a flush draw in there. There's another bottom straight out there as well. I decided to raise it up to $80. Now, I know you're thinking this is a very large raise, but you also have to consider that the pot was 6 ways. So at $60, and the $30 that just got put into the pot makes it $90. So me betting to $80 is actually not that bad of a raise, because the player in the small blind who bet 15, it was just a joke of a sizing. On this type of board, he should be betting at least like $40 to $50. And in that case, my raise would have been a lot larger. So $80 is actually a great price for them to call if they had a flush draw or anything of the sort. But all that is for naught, because they both fold, and the shadow does say that he had ace jack, and he shows me. I showed them that we had a straight, and that's a pretty good fold. But obviously, when you're 6 ways, anybody can have everything. So he got out the way. Smart decision by my boy Giannis, and we are moving on. So in this hand, we are under the gun with our favorite pocket pair, pocket 10s, black ones at that. We raise it up to $20. Next that I call, so does the big blind. and we are going 3 ways to a flop, which is Jack 9-8 with 2 hearts and a diamond. So we are opening it along with second pair. However, when it checks to me, I'm not going to put out a bet here being monkey in the middle. So I check. The Emerson player puts out a bet of $25. And I'm not loving this spot, but when the big blind calls, I mean, it's such a small bet. I don't like it because I could hit my straight and the flush could come in. But either way, with this price, I'm going to call. And we see the worst turn in the king of hearts. So it brings in some other straights. And it also brings in another overcard along with obvious front door flush. Now, I see the player to my right checking his card, so I know he doesn't have 2 hearts, but he could have 1. And I check, and great news is the player in position decides to check back. So now I know he doesn't have a flush because he would more than likely bet this hand. He is in position, so he could be trapping here, but I don't think so the way that has been going the last hour, me watching him play. So we're off to a river, which is the 8 of hearts, pairing the board and also bringing 4 hearts to the board. Now, the player to my right was the one who checked his cards to see if he had a heart, and now he decides to check. So I know that if he does have a heart, he doesn't have a very good one. So I decide on what sizing should I use to get both players to fold. Now, some people say that you need to be balanced, but I don't believe in balance when I'm playing 1-3 or 2-5 because it just doesn't exist. So most people would say, well, if you had the ace of heart, you would probably bet like $75 and you might get called by a smaller heart. But here it is. I don't want to get called, so I have to think of a bet that doesn't look overly bluffy, but will still look strong enough that I will get folds, because I am essentially turning my hand into a bluff. So I decided to bet close to pot in 125 into a pot of 135, and I know the player to my right doesn't have a strong heart, and I don't think the player to my left has any hearts at all. So he folds, and then the player to my right, he ends up tank folding, and the player to my left said that he had King Jack for 2 pair, but he was just scared of the hearts getting in there when 2 people called. So obviously I did get the best hand to fold, and that's why in live poker, you got to use more exploits than you use GTO. And so this is just how I play poker, and that works better for me. But you can comment down if you think that I should have used a different sizing, but we're off to the next hand. So like we always do, gotta go over a couple hands from the app. As always, if you want to play, just let me know. Send me a text, send me a comment. My number is in the description. So anyways, we are sitting here with Jack 10, 5-handed. So it's good enough to raise. I'm in semi-position. So I raised it up to $12 and only the button calls. Not the best situation because I don't have position. But either way, I do have range advantage. So on a king, queen, 5 board with 2 diamonds, I decided to go about 40% pot. 13 into 30, and the button decides to call. Obviously, we have an open ender, so any ace or any 9 will give us the nuts, but we can also wrap the king and the queen, so it hits us a lot harder. So we were off to a 7 of spades. We don't get there, but now we're deciding to ramp up the betting a decent amount, so now we're betting close to 70% pot, and once again, this player calls. So now when he calls, he's trying to tell me that he either has the nut flush draw or he has a hand such as King Jack, King 10 perhaps, because I think that at this point, if he had a set or King Queen, that he would have raised off on this turn for sure. So we're off to a river, which is a 9 of hearts, giving us the stone cold nuts. We cannot be beaten. And so at this point, if he has a busted flush draw, I think that I've already shown a decent amount of strength to where he wouldn't bluff. So I decided to just go polar, and I bet 115 into 128, pretty much pot. And I'm thinking that maybe he'll call if he has a decent king, or maybe he ran into 2 pair, but he goes all in over the top for another 140. So I relook at the board, making sure that I do have the nuts, and I do. So I'm trying to think, does he maybe have the nuts with me? Because I would have thought that if he had a set or 2 pair, he would have raised on the turn with a flush draw out there. So I'm more than likely thinking that we're chopping, because if you think about it, I went bet flop, bet turn, and pot the river. So my line is super strong. So I don't even think that he would just raise with 2 pair or just 1 pair. So I put in the call, and as you see, he has a set of 5s, and he slow played. If he would have raised on the turn, I for sure would have folded. This is why you don't slow play your hands, and then you overplay them on the river when the most obvious straight draw does get there. So that was one hand. We have one more hand to show you when another person overplays a hand against me when I have the nuts. So in this hand, we're looking down at a premium hand. We have ace queen of hearts under the gun. So we're going to raise this up to $12. It folds to the small blind who calls, and then the big blind player decides to get spicy for 62. Now this is one of the few players who does put in a few moves. So I could be putting a 4-bet perhaps, but nonetheless, I'm going to be in position of him. So I decided to put in the call, and we are off heads up as the small blind gets out of the way. So a pretty above average flop. We see queen 5-6 with 2 hearts. So we have top pair, top kicker, along with the nut flush draw. So at this point, my fate is sealed. I'm not going anywhere at any point in time. So we see a $52 bet, and I could be putting in a raise here because I am ahead equity wise versus pocket kings, but against pocket aces, which he could have, I am still behind. So with that being said, I'm in position, so I decide to just call. And now we are off to a turn, which is the jack. Now, it's quite possible that he could have pocket jack. So when he checks here, I don't really need any protection because when he's 3-betting and he's checking this turn, he's letting me know that he doesn't have aces and probably doesn't have kings. I know him, he would bet those hands on this turn card. So I just feel like I'm only really going to be drawing dead to a offsuit king. So I just decided to call, and we see the king of hearts. So not an offsuit king. We have the stone cold nuts. And once again, he checks. So obviously he's telling me that he doesn't have nothing. So I don't really think there's any point in making a small bet. So I make a decently sized bet of 158. I would have went a little bit more, but I wanted to give him room to be able to bluff me. And that I have 387, that's enough for him to feel like he could bluff me off this hand. And he rips it all in. He does try to accomplish that. And obviously we have the stone cold nuts. And we call. And as you see, he has ace jack with a jack of hearts. So he was turning his jack of heart into a bluff. But we had the stone cold nuts, and that was a gift, and we'll take it. So once again, if you want to play on the app, just let me know in the comment or text me, number in the description. But we're going back to the felt where we're starting off the 1-3 session of the video. So in this first hand of the 1-3 session, we have pocket kings, and we see a middle position raised to $15 with the next act player call. So when it gets to me, I decide to raise this up to $75. That's 4x plus the raise. So that's pretty standard here, nothing too special. And funny enough is both players decide to put in the call. So we are off 3 ways to a flop, which comes ace, 7, jack with all spades. And I look at my cards and I only have the king of clubs. So being as that I'm out of position, I just decide to check. And the next player that was the original raiser decides to bet out for $60. The player in between thinks about it for a second and then folds. And then obviously on an ace-high board with 3 spades and I don't have any at all, I could be drawing dead already. So with that being said, I just decided to get rid of my hand, and my opponent decides to show me the king of spades. So we know that he at least had the net flush draw. He might have had 2 spades and had his drawing dead, but we'll never know. But I think sometimes you got to be okay with this check folding your hand, even in 3-bet or 4-bet pots when you just feel like it's a very likely chance that you're going to be beat. Don't get too stubborn in thinking that, oh, well, this hits my range super hard, because you don't know what other people have. Most people that are calling a 3-bet and they're betting the flop are going to have an ace or a very strong hand, because the bluff frequency at 1-3 is not very high. So I just fold and live to fight another day. Okay, so we have a very interesting hand here. We're looking at an ace king. I raised it up to $15. There's one call. And when it gets to a watcher named Chris, he decides to raise it up to $40. And I'm not going to play around here. I'm going to put in this 4-bet at a small sizing. Could I be running into aces occasionally with that min click? But we're going to see now. I do have blockers at a hand. So I raise it up to 140. The player in between gets out the way, and we are off heads up to a flop. And the flop is about as great as you could ask for. It is ace 7-3. So obviously, more than likely, we have this hand is totally locked up. And so when he checks it to me, I got to decide on the sizing. And obviously, with this board being so locked up, I don't think he's going to call a 4-bet with pocket 7. I'm thinking he's going to have a hand like ace queen, maybe pocket jacks, pocket queens, maybe even ace queen suited sometimes. So I decided to put out a very small bet of $50. The pot has $300 in it at this point, and so I think that side will get all of the hands to call, and even some of those smaller aces will also call as well. So we are off heads up to a turn, which is a jack, and on this card, I only have about $175 left. At this point, the pot has $400 in it, so really it's a very small bet, and he decides to put in the call, and he shows that he has ace jack. So he turned the best hand, but either way, even if I go all in on the flop, once you hit that ace, you're just going to call off. So really was nothing I can do. And in the long term, you want those calls from ace jack, from all of those middling pocket pairs that I was just naming. And it just is what it is. Every once in a while, somebody hits a 3-outer on you. But shout out to Chris. He sat down at the table specifically to play with me. We did take a picture. Here it is. And all I'm going to say to Chris, it's a good thing that we took the picture before you took all my chips. I'm just kidding. To anybody who plays with me, it's all fun. If you want to play for blood, I don't mind. If you want to play for shits and giggles, that's fine too. So definitely not exactly the result that I wanted, but it is what it is. So let's just get to the outro and discuss some of the results. Alrighty, so that is it for the video. Let me know if you like the added stuff that I put in the beginning, a little bit of the day in the life of a vlogger. Let me know what it is. I got more stuff that I could add next time if you enjoy it. But let's just go over the numbers. We were in the game for 700, out for 850 in the 2-5, profit of 150, 10 big blinds an hour, which is a really good win rate. In the 1-3 session, we were out for $0 on a $300 buy-in, 300. And on those 2 app sessions that I showed you, I won a grand total of $1,500 between the both of them. So that brings the grand total for this video up to $1,350 profit. That's pretty good. Definitely appreciate y'all for watching. Like, comment, subscribe as always. And until the next video, holla.